Australians are happy to tap and go. Now the government wants them to tap and show.
What we want to do is make life easier, allow your credentials to be at your fingertips and keep your personal information safer.
A digital ID called Tex linked to MyGov, removing the need to hand over passports, driver's licences, birth certificates for companies to store and too often lose to hackers.
The Optus incident, one of the first on a large scale, showed why we have to do things differently.
The information will be heavily encrypted, so no sensitive data is shared or stored. Using a QR code and a simple tap to verify ID for hotel bookings, hiring cars, signing up for phones and more.
This is really a game changer in putting citizens at the centre of their identity management.
The digital ID rebellion, why millions of Australians are rejecting the new system. They promise you total convenience, but the hidden cost is the total end of privacy. Sounds dramatic, doesn't it? A bit like saying a sausage sizzle at Bunnings is the first step towards a socialist dictatorship. But here's the thing. Across Australia, a growing number of people are asking a simple question. How much personal information am I willing to trade for convenience? Critics say it's the beginning of a future where privacy becomes optional. Today we're decoding Australia's digital ID laws, separating fact from fear and asking whether Aussies are sleepwalking into a future they never voted for. So grab a coffee, grab a VB, and let's jump in. What is digital ID? First up, let's get one thing straight. Australia's digital ID system is now law. The Digital ID Act 2024 passed federal parliament and established a national framework allowing people to verify who they are online using accredited digital ID providers. The official pitch. No more uploading your driver's license every 5 minutes. No more creating 17 passwords you'll immediately forget. No more waiting weeks for identity verification. The government says digital ID is secure, convenient, voluntary, and privacy protected. According to the Australian government's digital ID website, users can verify themselves online faster and avoid repeating sharing identity documents with different organisations. The system includes privacy and security requirements for accredited providers. Sounds pretty reasonable so far. And honestly, for many Australians, it probably is. But this is where things get interesting. The convenience trap. Let's talk about human psychology. Because convenience is one hell of a drug. Remember when we all said, I'll never be putting my credit card online? Now we've got apps ordering takeaway before we even decided what we're hungry for. Convenience changes behaviour every single time. Digital ID supporters argue that the system simply removes friction. Critics argue that removing friction often means increasing dependence. The question isn't whether digital ID is convenient. The question is, what are we all giving up in exchange? Because throughout history, privacy really disappeared all at once. It disappeared one convenience at a time. What does the law actually say? Now, let's be fair. A lot of scary claims online simply aren't true. Some people believe that the government can instantly access every digital ID profile whenever it wants. That's not what the legislation says. In fact, the Office of Australian Information Commissioner says that the digital ID legislation includes additional privacy protections beyond Australia's Privacy Act. The digital ID framework includes extra privacy safeguards, restrictions on data sharing, regulatory oversight, significant penalties for misuse. Interesting twist. Official government guidance states that the law enforces access is actually restricted under the Digital ID Act except in special circumstances. That's important because it shows this debate isn't black and white. There are genuine privacy protections built into legislation. But having safeguards today doesn't automatically settle concerns about tomorrow. The real fear. Here's what many Australians are actually worried about. Not what digital ID is today, what it could become. History shows technology almost always expands. Nobody bought a smartphone thinking, one day this thing will know my location, spending habits, sleeping patterns, and political interests. Yet, here we are. Digital rights advocates argue that once identity systems become deeply integrated into government and commercial services, pressure can emerge to use them for additional purposes. Today is optional, tomorrow may not. Some legal experts have already noted debate around whether digital ID will remain genuinely voluntary if more services gradually begin requiring it. That's the concern driving much of the resistance. Not necessarily government conspiracy, but mission creep. The social scoring question. Now, let's tackle the elephant in the room. Social credit systems. There is currently no Australian social credit score. Let's be crystal clear. Ever. Many Australians look overseas and ask, what stops identity systems from eventually being connected to more and more behavioural data? That's not happening now, but people worry about the future governments, future policies, and future technologies. The concern isn't today's law, the concern is future amendments. Because every government promises restraint when including new powers, the real test comes years later. The data economy. Here's the reality nobody talks about enough. Data has become the most valuable resource on Earth. More valuable than oil, more valuable than gold. Every time you click, scroll, buy, search, watch, someone is learning something about you. Digital ID systems exist in the same environment. Supporters argue that they actually reduce unnecessary data sharing because accredited providers verify information without repeating handling documents around. Critics argue centralization always creates attractive targets for hackers, governments, corporations, and bad actors. And honestly, both arguments have merit, which is why this debate matters. The bigger question. Maybe this isn't really about digital ID at all. Maybe it's about a much bigger question. What does privacy mean in 2026? Most Australians carrying a smartphone use social media, shop online, bank online, work online. We're already living highly digitised lives. The digital ID debate is forcing Australians to confront something uncomfortable. We have gradually become so accustomed to convenience that we've forgotten the value of autonomy. Because once privacy is gone, you don't get a refund. The digital ID debate isn't a battle between heroes and villains. It's a debate about trust. Trust in governments, trust in institutions, trust in technology, and trust in the future. Some Australians will happily adopt digital ID. Others will reject it completely. Both sides deserve to be heard because freedom isn't about everyone making the same choice. Freedom is having the right to choose in the first place. The most important question isn't, do you support digital ID? The real question is, how much privacy are you willing to trade for convenience? Because every generation inherits freedoms, but every generation also decides which freedoms it keeps. And if we're going to hand over more of our identity to the digital world, we should all do it with our eyes wide open. If you found this video valuable, hit like, subscribe, and remember, question everything, even this video. See you next time.